Hey everyone, and welcome. For decades, Black voters have been one of the most solid voting blocs for the Democratic Party. It's almost been a given. But what happens when that loyalty starts to show some cracks? Today, we're going to dig into a perspective that explores this exact shift. It's a story that's really rooted in a powerful sense of betrayal, a clash of core values, and a pretty provocative new look at American history. Okay, so the perspective we're exploring today doesn't pull any punches. It kicks off with this really powerful, really intense statement right from the jump, comparing a political party to a toxic, abusive relationship. That immediately sets the stage for a discussion about deep emotional and political harm.
So you have to ask, where does a feeling that strong come from? Well, the source material grounds this entire argument in a very personal story. It's about a woman who, after being a dedicated Democrat for almost 50 years, just hit a wall and felt completely disillusioned.
And this metaphor is absolutely central to the argument. I mean, think about it. It paints this picture of feeling totally used, like you were just a slave, in the speaker's own words, there for your money and your vote, and then just cast aside. This deep, profound sense of abandonment is presented as the real reason for rethinking a political loyalty that lasted a lifetime.
Okay, so from that very personal feeling of betrayal, the argument zooms out to something much bigger, what the speakers see as a fundamental clash of values.
And this slide really lays out that core conflict. On one side, you have what the source describes as the modern democratic agenda, and on the other, the traditional values they hold. They argue that the party's platform has become, and this is their phrase, antithetical to the Word of God. This creates a direct collision with the conservative Christian values they say they were raised on. The language gets even more intense here, especially when it comes to the topic of abortion. The source then tries to connect this stance to history, claiming that the founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, was a white supremacist whose actual goal was to, quote, kill black babies. Now, to build that case, the source lays out these specific points. They're trying to draw a direct line from figures celebrated by the Democratic Party to what they are calling a death cult that they believe has historically targeted the black community. So, with this moral conflict brewing, the speakers say they felt they had to go back and completely re-examine the history that had always been taught about America's two main political parties. And this is really the crux of their historical argument. The assertion here is that the roles of the two parties are basically the exact opposite of the popular narrative. The claim is that the Republican Party was actually the original political home for Black Americans and was the real champion of their civil rights.
Now, as soon as you make a historical argument like that, there's one big question that always comes up, right? And the source knows this, so they tackle it head on.
Yup, that's the one. But what about the party switch? The speakers directly challenge this idea. They argue that, while a lot of people believe the party swapped platforms on civil rights, nobody can ever seem to point to the exact moment that this big switch supposedly happened.
And to argue there was no switch, they point to what they see as a key piece of evidence, the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. They claim that it was Republican support that was essential to breaking a Democratic-led filibuster against the bill. For them, this moment proves the party's original positions never really changed, and that the whole party switch story is a myth. So you've got this sense of personal betrayal, a deep conflict over values, and this completely revised version of political history. All of this builds up to a direct call for Black voters to fundamentally rethink where they stand politically. So why don't more people see things this way? Well, according to this perspective, the whole Republicans are racist narrative is actually a deliberate smear campaign. It's a tactic, they say, designed to act as a barrier to keep Black voters from ever even listening to what the other side has to say. And this brings us to a quote that completely reframes the whole idea of changing your vote. It's not about switching or betraying your community. The argument is that it's an act of returning, of reclaiming what they say was an original ancestral political home. So in the end, the message here isn't a command to just go vote for one party or the other. Instead, it's a call for independent thinking, to break away from just voting based on tradition, to do your own research, and to make a choice based on your personal values and what you think is actually best for your family's future. And that leaves us with the big, thought-provoking question this whole perspective raises. In today's constantly shifting political world, how do we even define our political identity? Is it about tradition and lifelong loyalty? Is it about our values today? Or, as this source suggests, is it maybe about taking a bold, new look at history itself? Thanks for digging into this with us today.